Hey everyone, Tony D with a Screenwriter's Take on Extraction, starring Thor, Chris Hemsworth. This is a Netflix movie, and it was screenplays by Joe Russo, who you might remember as being involved in a whole bunch of movies, including Avengers Endgame. So, what you got here is a really good, gritty sort of action movie, I guess you'd call it. It's part military, but it's also part crime drama. The basic premise is Chris Hemsworth plays a mercenary, a military mercenary, who's hired by a drug kingpin to extract his son from another drug kingpin in India. So the setting is great. You've got, this impoverished country, or at least parts of it, that, and you've got two drug kingpins sort of battling it out. And everything in the screenplay is very practical, right? No one does anything just to do it for the script. No one does anything just to drive the movie forward. It's done because the characters have to do it, because they're either trapped, because they're forced to, or because this is the sensible way to go. This is a movie that plays its characters to the height of its intelligence. Now, the body count is off the charts, but it's forgivable in a genre like this because it is a lot of action, and you want a lot of action. It's very exciting. I particularly enjoyed the car chases in this one because you're in the streets of, I think it's Mumbai or Bangladesh. I forget which one they're in. I think they're in both at different points in the movie, but the streets are they're everywhere. They're not like on a grid system. They are this windy, twisty maze of streets and laundry and markets and other cars and soldiers and cops and other mercenaries. Well, not other mercenaries really, other criminals. So Chris Hemsworth is in just pure hell from beginning to end. And that's what makes it a very compelling movie. He's also a fleshed out character, as well as some of the bad guys who are in the movie too. We get to hear, and again, we get to hear these moments because of practical reasons in the movie. We don't get this sort of ridiculous, oh, it's exposition time, everybody spill their guts. No, it's more organic than that. And the acting's great. Everything's great about the movie. Can't recommend it enough. Now, that's my non-spoiler review. Now I'll get into some spoilers, so be warned. It's playing on Netflix, so I suggest you go see it. Okay, first spoiler. Act 1. Chris Hemsworth. Well, actually, it starts out with the son being kidnapped and how ruthless the kidnappers are. And then part of Act 1 is that Chris Hemsworth is contacted, and they have this moment where Chris Hemsworth jumps into a lake. It's quite a jump, and his friends are like, oh my God, did he just jump into the lake or whatever? And he sort of sits on the bottom and kind of meditates for a moment. And Hemsworth is still mourning the loss of his 6-year-old son, which you find out later in the movie more about at a crucial moment, and that he's just, he can't get over it. He's just broken. He's a broken man, and he's going through the motions being a mercenary because what else is there to do for him? Nothing. So throughout the whole movie, we see blurry images. He's flashing back to his son playing on the beach, and we see blurry images. And we assume, it's someone he's lost, and it turns out to be his son. So we don't find out yet, but you can kind of assume it's either his wife or his son, right? So, or his daughter, perhaps, but it turns out to be his son. So he's hired to go extract the kid. And they have a plan. They have other mercenaries. They go in. And they're extracting the kid. They catch him, and they're preparing to go on to a boat to take him away. And this is where the second act begins. The second act is kind of the double cross. And the double cross is not just, a random, screw you kind of double cross, or haha, I was with the bad guy the whole time, which would be lame. What it is from the beginning, we already know in the first act that the drug kingpin doesn't have enough money to pay the second amount of the second payment. He only has enough for the down payment. So they send in like the drug kingpin's right-hand man, who's a special forces guy, to take the kid from Hemsworth and basically kill him and just take the kid. Doesn't go as planned, of course. All the mercenary guys are killed. The whole team dies except Hemsworth. And it's about Hemsworth trying to survive in the second act. And also he fights the special forces guy, and they basically fight each other to a bloody standstill where, one guy, Hemsworth escapes with the kid and the other guy's injured and he's injured. So then we get to the savior character of the movie, who's always the friend who saves the hero at a moment, a crisis like this. And it's one of Hemsworth's old buddies. He saved his life. And, it's David Harbour. Which was interesting to see him in this role. And, he's everywhere now. So he did an okay job at being kind of a guy, but kind of a scumbag too. And he's kind of in the same boat as everybody else living in India. He's an expat. And that boat is, you don't mess with the drug kingpins. So he wants to give the kid over to the drug kingpins. There's no reason to save him at this point. They're not getting paid. And, Hemsworth's boss is like, cut him loose. But Hemsworth, of course, is missing his son. And without even saying it, we can see the correlation between he can't let this kid die because he's a young boy and he reminds him of his son who was taken from him. And their sort of bond is what drives the movie. At first, they don't really have a bond, but it's not like, it could have been easy to turn it into a wisecracking duo, like with the kid rattling off one-liners. He only has like one funny line like that, really, and it's, it's more intense than that. It's more realistic. The only non-realistic part is Hemsworth just kills so many people, right? And so then the third act is they cobble together some escape plan, and it's all about getting across this bridge into the other territory, and the ruling drug kingpin just seems to have unlimited henchmen and army guys and police guys to keep throwing at Hemsworth. And the mercenaries come out to meet him, and then it all goes to hell. Now, the ending, I won't spoil it for you, but they've already announced an Extraction 2. So I think you kind of know where the ending's going to go if you haven't seen the movie. But I warned you there would be spoilers, which, the way they kept it, I thought was an interesting way. If you saw that last shot, it was an interesting way to kind of end it if they never did a sequel, and you could sort of make up your own ending kind of. But I think we all know what the real ending is. I think we all know what's going to happen in Extraction 2. So, really great, tight screenplay, tight direction. Everything about this movie was super tight. Other than the body count and Hemsworth's relentless sort of like being able to be shot a million times, it is a pretty realistic movie. Up to a point. I mean, obviously, there's way too much violence, but hey, I mean, that's what you want from a movie like this. You want relentless action, kind of over the top. But it was kept in a world that the violence made sense. The violence wasn't glorified as being this, wow, cool, kind of thing. But I couldn't help but think that Hemsworth was kind of in a video game because there were so many dead guys. I mean, I would say that body count had to be upwards of 150, just from Hemsworth. That doesn't even count all the other guys who got killed from other guys. And, but, this is a good character. I'm not sure what the story's going to be for a second movie. Seems like Hemsworth's character's kind of played out. So it would be interesting to see what the heck they're going to do. There are characters to bring back. There are characters to, say, oh, we meet again kind of thing. Um, I'm not so sure a second movie is really necessary, but it could work. I mean, it could work if they follow, if Russo, Russo's a good screenwriter. There's no getting around it. I mean, that script is tight as hell. So, I mean, I'm sure he could find a way to make that second movie work. Maybe Hemsworth's gone through some things, and now it's not so much about his transformation or his values. Maybe it's the whole first movie is the transformation, and now he's some sort of Avenger, no pun intended, and he's not going to be a mercenary anymore. He's going to be, a guy who's going to help the downtrodden. Although that's not realistic either. But maybe it's him getting his money. Him getting his money against the drug dealer who kind of stiffed him, or maybe he, became the drug dealer's side piece. He's the guy who replaces the special forces guy and becomes a drug enforcer himself, because he's after this other kingpin who left a lot of bodies behind. But there were interesting little stories without. There were interesting little stories with the evil gangsters, with the kid rising up through the ranks. It wasn't super realistic, but I could give that a little leeway, because I mean, this was not the main character. This was a side character, so I appreciated a little more detail than normal. A lot of characters, of course, aren't going to be back. They're dead, but I'm sure Hemsworth and Russo could come up with something, or even move it to another country, even move it to the States, where maybe the Indian kingpins come to get their revenge, and Hemsworth has to defend his family, his new family, or his new friends, or whatever. But it's definitely a movie worth seeing. It is a tight screenplay. There's a lot to learn from it. Again, I would just say the violence is just off the charts, but the direction's really nice. I mean, there were scenes in that movie that really made me squirm, especially the scenes in the sewer. It's just, a well-balanced, for the most part, movie. I would give it probably a solid 8.5 out of 10. And I would totally recommend it. So check out Extraction from Chris Hemsworth, Joe Russo, and David Harbour.